As you know, in next year, 2008, the Beijing is hosting the 2008 Olympic Games. So during that time, when every country in the world would be representing the nation at the Games, it's only us as Tibetans who cannot represent because we don't have a country.
The current situation in Tibet is no better than it was when we lost our country initially and we all fled to India. Even now there's a continuous flow of refugees coming to India every year, about 2,500 to 3,000 Tibetans coming out to exile every year. And God knows how many get sent back and get caught in the border because they all travel without passes.
No, I mean last year in September, 30th September, I mean there were a group of about 70 young Tibetans fleeing Tibet, and they were shot upon by by the Chinese border police. So I mean that this trend has been highlighted by the Nangbala killing. There are many Tibetans who flee Tibet for several reasons. I think the younger Tibetans flee because they are deprived of education in Tibet, and they want to be be exposed or have access to a decent education. There's also a large majority who feel they do not have the right spiritual education in Tibet. So many young Tibetans come to exile to become monks or nuns and to pursue their higher spiritual education.
In Tibet today, when I use the word genocide, I do not use it lightly. In the 60s, they were actually using physical force to kill the able-bodied, separating families, using the men as slaves, the women in prostitution, the children for indoctrination to be brought up as Chinese. And now today something far more dangerous is happening, where in the name of economic development and progress, the Chinese allow some minimal day-to-day freedom to the Tibetans. The tourists come and see some evidence of normal life, but in the meanwhile, millions of Chinese settlers are moving into Tibet. There's intermarriage, forced abortions, birth control among Tibetans, and to that extent, we are facing a situation where the Tibetan people, to regain a Tibet for Tibetans, for us, time is running out.
First of all, they in the 60s they destroyed most of the temples. They just keep some temples and the Potala Palace in Lhasa, for example, to make money out of it. It's an empty palace. There is nothing to see almost, but it's $10 of entry fee, and yeah, just for the Western tourists and especially for the Chinese tourists. And I don't know, there are no locals anymore, and if you see locals, you think they are actors, just to keep the image of Tibet.
Yeah, the basic human rights inside Tibet, it's still denied by the Chinese government. You don't have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom to profess the religion. Even taking a picture of Dalai Lama is punishable under Chinese law, especially in around Lhasa and some other big cities.
And if you stay there for a few weeks, then you start crying. You really start crying. I was standing on the rooftop of the Potala Palace and I couldn't stand it anymore. I thought, well, this was the home of the Dalai Lama, and he had to escape. And now, I don't know, it's like he himself, he says it's so strange to live in Dharamsala because it's his exile, and he would like to go back to Lhasa as a not as an official anymore, just like a normal person, but he's not allowed to. And you just, I can't understand it. I mean, I have my home and I can go there, but the Tibetans, they don't have a home anymore, or if they have, then it's not a living.
And whatever voice, opposition voice against communism, against the government, is regarded as, you know, anti-national or separatist, you know. And the government, they are very harsh on dissidents. And for the children's, you know, you can't study, you don't have the right to study in your own mother tongue. Every children has to learn, you know, Chinese. In that way, slowly, you know, the China is trying to Sinocize.
Many youngsters want a democracy in China. And this is something China keep on telling that, okay, they want their communists, but many youngsters, who educated youngsters, scholars want democratic in China. See the Tiananmen Square, 1989 Tiananmen Square, they have killed their own people, they have killed their own youngsters, which they want human rights violation, they want human rights good record, and also democratic in China. Related to the Falun Gongs, related with many minorities in China, they really want a freedom, religious freedom and political freedom, cultural freedom. They want any kind of freedom.
And the communist regime, you know, is using its power, is using its money, you know, it needs resources to run its economy. In that way, it is helping the military regime, especially in Africa, like the regimes where these regimes who doesn't provide freedom to its own people, especially if we take the example of Sudan, you know, where hundreds, you know, millions of people have died under the Sudanese regime, which is being backed by the Chinese government. When every country wanted to send, you know, military, wanted to do military intervention inside Sudan, it was China who vetoed. So to bring changes in Africa, we must first bring change in China.
So they know we don't need any kind of strong evidence. Whole international community knows that there's a strong human rights violation. If you go in Tibet, there's a strong religious violation in Tibet. No doubt about those political prisoners. They were put inside the jail without any kind of fair trial. China keep on telling that Trungpa Tenzin Delek Rinpoche and many other political prisoners were put inside, they were life sentenced, put inside the jail for 20-25 years under a fair trial, but that was not.
So Tibetans are still oppressed in Tibet. If not, why would they risk their lives and their families' future and security to speak out and then be tortured forever, be even killed sometimes? And the Panchen Lama that Rongyada was talking about, he was imprisoned for being the Panchen Lama. He was only 6 years old when he was imprisoned, the youngest political prisoner ever, we call them. He was born in 1989 and he was recognized in 1995 as the 11th Panchen Lama by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And 3 days after his recognition, his entire family was kidnapped by the Chinese government, and we still don't know where he is. The Chinese government keeps on saying he's fine, we have been educating him at home, he weighs this much, he's this tall, he just doesn't want to be disturbed. He's been telling the Chinese government to keep him secure and away from us, which doesn't make sense. And then the Chinese government, an atheistic government, who Mao Zedong told the Dalai Lama that religion is poison. A government who believes that religion is poison is taking initiative into recognizing our lamas. It's the Tibetan lamas. They have recognized their own Panchen Lama, who they are just parading around as the real Panchen Lama, and our real Panchen Lama that the Dalai Lama recognized is under house arrest, and we don't know where he is. We don't even know if he's alive. We have been asking for an evidence. Just show us a picture, let us talk to him. And he turned 18 on April 25th this year, and we've been saying now he's an adult. We don't want Chinese government to talk for him anymore. If he doesn't want us to bother him, he has to come out and say it. And we haven't heard anything from him. So the Chinese government claiming that he doesn't want to be bothered and that he wants to be secure, I think it's all bogus, and there's no concrete evidence to show that it's not.
I think the situation is pretty grim. It is grim because many, in fact the majority of Tibetans are totally dissatisfied with the conditions there. And their additional worries are exacerbated by the fact that the new railway line to Lhasa is bringing in a lot of migrant Chinese workers who are taking away Tibetan land, Tibetan jobs. So this added Chinese population presence in Tibet is adding to the social tension in Tibet. And along with this is the fear that as more Chinese migrant workers come into Tibet, this will fundamentally erode the distinct identity of the Tibetan people, and that's a real fear of the Tibetan people.
The Tibetan people, they are becoming marginalized. We are becoming a minority in our own land.
And soon, as the white people have done in North America, in South America, this is happening in front of our eyes inside Tibet, not only in Tibet, in eastern Turkestan, in southern Mongolia, in Manchuria. From what I have heard, it is all over. They are outnumbered 100 to 1 or whatever. The only way for Tibetans today to practice their faith and to have a glimpse of their beloved leader is to escape to India, and also to meet up with broken families. And also inside Tibet, they are second-class citizens. At least in free India, they have the dignity of living as Tibetans.
When Beijing was first nominated as one of the countries to be given the chance to host 2008 Olympics, there was a global protest from TSGs, Tibet support groups all over the world, and of course Tibetan NGOs, that Beijing, with a record of such human rights violation, should not be holding this prestigious, most sought after place of hosting the 2008 Beijing Olympics, 2008 Olympics, but finally International Olympics Committee gave them the chance, and we lost that fight. But then, Beijing promised so many things when they got that chance to host the Olympics. They said they would improve all their human rights condition in Tibet and also in mainland China, and that they would improve their environmental policies and all the environmental destructions with mining and deforestation, and even the road to Mount Everest. They have been creating a lot of environmental destruction in Tibet and in other parts of China. They said they will put a stop to all of that, which never happened. So we have been demanding the IOC to pressure China into staying true to the promises they made when they first got the bid to host the 2008 Olympics. We are doing that through petitions and through email petitions and stuff like that.
We have no moral right to call on the youth of the world to boycott the Olympics, because this is their one opportunity. It was not the youth of the world who decided. The Olympics is a celebration of youth and freedom, and we want the youth of the world to go there to participate for the glory of sports, for the honor of their country. But having won your medal, then I call upon the youth of the world to return the blood-stained medals of Beijing. Don't take these blood-stained. They have the blood of millions of innocent lives on them. Please go and celebrate the Olympics. It was not your decision. It was politicians and business people who, in the interest of power politics and big business, awarded genocide by giving Beijing the Olympics. In the case of Hitler, 1936, he used it only as a tool to conduct his war and his plan of genocide against the Jews. In the case of China, they are known to have committed genocide, and not only against the Tibetans and the Mongols and the Uyghur Muslims of Eastern Turkestan, the hundreds of countless millions they have killed in their own country, and yet they have won the Olympics. Nevertheless, I call upon the youth of the free world, having won your bronze and your silver, and having won the coveted gold, please return these blood-stained medals. Thank you.
So the basic idea of Team Tibet, is to form a sports organization within Exile Tibetans, so that they could represent as Tibet in international games like Olympics and other sports, big sports event.
And this time, this Olympic, it's a big issue because it's in August 2008. The global attention will be on the Beijing Olympic. So we Tibetan people are demanding that we want to participate in Olympic 2008, as we are a free country.
We are right now in the process of recruiting Tibetan athletes. And then we will be sending a letter to IOC soon, an application to let us play. But then our banner reads, "Bring Tibet to 2008 Olympics." As in, it's a symbolic sort of claim, asking all the global media and all the global tourists that would be going to China in 2008 August, and all the global athletes to please keep Tibet in their hearts and do whatever they can when they're in Beijing. Even if they can do a small protest, a one-person protest, please do that. And we have been trying to recruit athletes, global athletes, to, how in New Mexico, when the Black Panther movement was going on, the Black Power movement to end the racial discrimination in the United States, they used the Olympic stage to protest against racial discrimination. Two of the black athletes did in New Mexico in 1968. Olympics gives us such a big global platform that we have to utilize it to our benefit. And we've been requesting athletes, requesting tourists, and requesting anyone who's going to Beijing to do something for Tibet.
Yeah, on the 4th of August 2007, what we organized international run for Tibet and a symbolic football match between the Tibet national team and the Delhi level, which represents India. We were supposed to play at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi, which is a capacity of 75,000. But at the very last minute, the top Indian government officials, they said that we cannot play on that particular ground because Tibetans, since we have used the word national team, since we don't have a country, you cannot represent as a country. And we requested them since that, we as the Tibetans, we have all right to play, when every country is participating, it's playing, why can't we? But then without any reason, they disallowed from using that stadium. And after that, we found another venue for the football match, which was subsequently again declined. Authorities said that you can't also play there. And later on that same day, we were taken to another ground, the third ground, which was again, said that we can't play there. Finally, we were allowed to, we got a playground where it was a college playground. It's called Hirorimal College, where we were allowed to play. And this shows how, you know, Tibetans, even in a free country, you know, we don't have the right to play. We do not have the right to represent our own country. We were supposed to, the Tibet national team was supposed to play with a team called Delhi level, where where the team comprises of state level players from the Delhi. But later on, they got intimations from higher authorities, especially from the sports bodies, saying that if you play with the Tibet national team, you would be deregistered. So many of these players, they feared for their own, you know, profession, and they declined to come. And also the referee and the linesman, nobody came. So in a way, nobody wants to play with us. But finally, whatever eventuality they were coming on the way, we resolved ourselves. You know, we committed ourselves that whatever conditions the government would lay down, we would definitely play. We would definitely represent our team as a Team Tibet. You know, we have the conviction. And then finally, we were able to play at the KMC College ground, and the Tibet team won the match by 6-0. You know, and we have sent a strong message saying that we are determined to play, you know, under our own Tibetan national flag, and we will play one day. We have all the criteria, we fit into all the criteria, except that we don't have a country. But we want to play. We love sports. Tibetan loves playing football, and we will soon play on an international stage.
I believe in even in Dalai Lama's heart, in each and every Tibetan's heart, we want complete independence. We do not want to be under Chinese government at any cost, if we could have it that way, if there was a possibility. But Dalai Lama has proposed the middle path policy, where him being a Buddhist monk, thinking of all sentient beings' happiness and not just Tibetans, he tried to come up with a way where both Chinese and Tibetans would benefit, and we could live under the greater framework of Chinese government and still have the religious freedom and right to expression and all the other rights that other people just take for granted, and we don't have it now in Tibet. That to have all those rights in Tibet, and we will have one government, two policy kind of thing in.
We are willing to compromise on Tibetan independence, but in return, China should show more conciliatory this approach, and this meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama this halfway, and this give the Tibetan people this meaningful autonomy under one single administration. And we are doing this within the this structure of the Chinese constitution. All these demands we are making on the Chinese leadership are demands based on the rights enshrined in the Chinese constitution.
The Chinese, as I see it, have no need to talk to a bunch of helpless refugees. They are not going to hand over, a very important fact about Tibet, most people, even some of our friends are not aware of, is the sheer size of Tibet. 2.5 million square kilometers. And what the world sees as Tibet today, this so-called Tibet Autonomous Region, is only in terms of our land mass, 50%. And in terms of the population, only about 1/3. The more populous areas of the east, the province where the current His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama was born, has been renamed by the Chinese as Qinghai province. Large parts of eastern Tibet, which we call Kham, east of what we call the Dichu River, the Chinese call it the Yangtze, have been absorbed into neighboring Sichuan province, into Gansu province, down south into Yunnan province. So Tibet under China's colonial rule is divided into 6 parts. The rest of the world sees only this truncated half called Tibet Autonomous Region. But even there now more and more Chinese are moving in.
In a recent interview with the CNN, His Holiness have said that question of Tibet freedom struggle is not question of Dalai Lama, it's question of 6 million Tibetan people. Even after he dies, the Tibetan struggle won't die because it's a question of 6 million Tibetan people. If you see in any kind of freedom struggle, the most important thing is the people participations. The people desire to see a freedom, people desire to go back to their country.
Mahatma Gandhi's influence on His Holiness is, I think, fundamental. The whole idea of His Holiness directing the Tibetan people to make their struggle, non-violent, is the direct, influence, this flowing from Gandhiji's experience. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in his first autobiography called My Land and My People, said he visited Rajghat. That's where Gandhi is. Gandhi's remains are enshrined. So he felt that was way back in 1956. So he wanted, somehow he thought, if Gandhi were then alive, what advice he would give His Holiness regarding how the Tibetan struggle should be conducted. So it's a huge this influence, and this influence is reinforced by the fact that Buddhism itself is a religion or a spiritual this experience which stresses on non-violence, which teaches that all life is precious and interconnected.
With non-violence, I have no problem. But my problem today, when I criticize the government, when I resign from the government in opposition to this so-called current middle way policy, my problem is with non-action. And for me, non-violence and non-action, the two are not the same. Non-violence, as Gandhi practiced it, was an active force. And yet, at the same time, I would like to add that today, the struggle in Tibet, though we are talking about freedom, it is a struggle for survival. It is a struggle for life or death. We do or die. And in such situations, we do not have the luxury of choosing our means. The means has been imposed upon us. China is guilty of genocide in Tibet. And to that extent, the moral violence of not standing up to evil, for me, being an ordinary human being, is a greater evil than the need to use any necessary physical force to stand up to evil.
There are groups trying to fight for complete independence, and they will do their job. And there are groups trying to fight for middle path policy, and they're doing their job. In the end, it's freedom for Tibetan people in Tibet. If they're free, if they're able to do what they want, have any political allegiance to whatever political party, and be of any religious denomination, and not have someone telling you that having a picture of this person is a crime. I think that's our goal.
But finally, even to the leaders of the world, that Tibet is not just about Tibetans. It is about the roof of the world. It is about the source of all the major rivers of Asia. And somehow, for our future generations, somebody somewhere must find the courage to stand up to this evil, murderous, genocidal regime in Beijing, even for the sake of the Chinese people who have suffered so much.
I think since 50 years, since the occupation of Tibet, our struggle has been based on non-violence, under the leadership of His Holiness, and so far we have not found any meaningful result, and it is high time that people of the world, people with conscience, people with people who believes in justice, they should come forward and try to resolve this issue.